Hi everyone, today let's talk about PPI, then we'll take a look at max pain to see how we finished up on the week. Then we'll get into the charts, as well as my results for the day and my thoughts going into the Monday session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So PPI came back higher than expectations, and that sunk the market pretty early in the session. It was expected to go up 0.2%. It came in at 0.3%, so big difference there. Headline PPI 0.8%, excluding food and energy, moved up by 2.7%. Once we got these numbers, we saw yields starting to go higher, and that obviously put some pressure on equities. Goods prices rose just 0.1%, whereas food went up 0.5%. Then categories like meats surged 5%, and then we saw energy, which I expected to be the big driver here, at 7.1%. I thought that was going to push CPI higher, but we didn't quite see that, and maybe that'll come on the next iteration of headline CPI. But right now we're seeing it here on PPI, which tends to be a little bit of a leading indicator. Moving over to the economic calendar just for a moment, you can see that here. Core and headline PPI coming in at 0.3%. Michigan inflation expected to be at 2.9%, slightly better than expectations. Consumer expectations still very good. Consumer sentiment still quite good. And that wraps it out for the week. Moving over to max pain, you can see we finished right around 445.85. That is lower than what I expected. I thought 447 would be a solid level. We ended up finishing right in here between these two levels. Not quite at the bottom of the call, so not absolute weakness, but still a little bit weaker than I expected. Moving over to the charts here, starting off with the S&Ps on the 30-minute and the 4-hour. You can see we basically went sideways. We had a big leg down on PPI, but we found support at the trend line and then grinded up towards the end of the day. We ended up above the 21 EMA here on the 30-minute, and that looks a little bit more bullish. You can see that here on the 4-hour. Doji candle, bullish candle after hours, and we were basically flat on the S&Ps, so definitely starting to base off in my opinion, and it's finding support at these trend lines, looking for a bigger retrace up to that 55 EMA in my opinion. Moving over to the NASDAQ on the hour and the 4-hour, looked quite a bit weaker here. You can see the big leg down, crossed 367.63, came down, tested my level at 364.84, held that level on the wick, and then rallied back into the EMAs, and finished okay on the day, not terrible. Still definitely in a downtrend, and you can see we're still in this downtrend structure after grinding along that upper trend line. But if we jump down to the 5-minute here, you can see a series of higher lows, and then a consolidation into the end of the week, so showed a little bit of strength, but not as much as the S&Ps. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, you can see the Russell continues to grind on that 144 EMA. It held up here still sitting at 190.94, and we closed above it right at 191. Once this breaks, I do think we're going to see a bigger move down, but until that happens, it's still in a decent position. You can trade off of that level, and it does look okay going into the end of the day. You can see those wicks to the lows, and they got bought up fairly strongly, so a little bit more neutralized, just like the S&Ps. Dow also continuing to hold in this zone, absolutely flat for the last several days. It'll be interesting to see where this breaks out. It does look a little bit bullish, but you do have to respect that 55 EMA sitting at 353.51. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, Apple still grinding in this area. It did move lower a little bit, but it didn't take out these lows yet, still between 176.15 and 178.58, the same area that we've been in for a while. Momentum still technically bullish, but moving lower on a downtrend. Like I said before, might be waiting for this 21 to just kind of consolidate in here, go flat, and then get the big spike breakout and start to get that retrace before we ultimately get a bigger down move. That would be interesting. Definitely something to watch for. Tesla continues to grind lower, still looking at 323.84. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples still holding above the 144 and this highly traded zone at 74.73. Discretionary gapped lower, showed a little bit of strength, but you can see here now that we are below all of these shorter term EMAs and SMAs. You have the 9 EMA VWAP, 21, 55, and then we're below this 144 here now. If we continue to get rejection, we should be looking for a move down to 166.78. Moving over to breadth on the 50 and the 200, you can see the 50 continues to make new lows. Now we're looking for a test of that 5281 area. This is actually a pretty important area. You can see we had multiple tops in this zone. Last time we got above it, we got a pretty decent rejection before ultimately moving higher. So interesting zone. Definitely could find some support in this area. Momentum starting to turn a little bit. 200-day average, touching that 55 EMA once again, and then still slightly bearish, but did have a little bit of a rejection wick here at the end of the day. We've talked about this 55 holding multiple times, and if it does, I would expect at least a lower high setup in markets. Moving over to yields, as we talked about in the PPI article, yields are going higher, and that is still putting pressure on equities. 10-year yields starting to get very close to those October highs that we had up around 4.25. We're not quite there yet. We wicked all the way up to 4 1/3, going back to 21 October here. We're getting close to that, and if we do start to get into that zone, I think that's going to trigger a much bigger pullback in my opinion. Moving over to the dollar, we found a little bit of strength here, testing these highs, held above the 144 on the daily chart, bullish momentum coming back in, looking to get above 102.98, and then I have the 200 SMA sitting at 103.34. As long as the dollar continues to find strength, that's going to put pressure on equities, so the dollar going higher and yields going higher should spell some lower prices over the next week or two. Moving over to JNK and TLT, JNK gap down, still holding in the zone. JNK is really not giving us a lot of information here recently. It's been chopping in this same range for quite a while. TLT, on the other hand, continues to break down. This is the weekly chart to give you that perspective going back to those October lows, and it does seem like we're going to get very close to that zone over the next week or two. Moving over to the volatility indices, MOVE index rallied a little bit. VIX broke down, got below my 1490 level, still above the 55 EMA, and it could hold in that zone, but this looks much weaker here now. If this continues to pull back, that should give us a little bit of strength in equities. Maybe we see a pause in the dollar and yields over the next day or two, but ultimately I do think this is going to go higher at some point and get into this 1850 to 20 area. Moving over to my accounts, you can see I held a 191 put going into Monday. I had puts on the IWM throughout the day, and that worked out here. You can see almost $74 in profit on those puts. And then I had some puts and calls on the Qs. I ended up rolling out to 366. For Monday, I have 2 puts there, and then I have a call, 369 and 370. I do think we'll get a little bit of a move up on the Qs. I don't think it'll be crazy strong, but I do think we might see a little bit of bullishness. We saw a little bit of a rally at the end of the day, which was interesting. Overall, still neutral on the Qs, and I do think we'll see an up move on the IWM. In terms of results, not bad. This is my preferred result on a day where the NASDAQ was down a little bit less than 1%. That's about the maximum that I can absorb and still make money. And this was a perfect result here for today. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of PPI. Are we going to see a resurgence of inflation, or are we just going to see the soft landing that everyone keeps talking about? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.